Hello everyone and welcome to SuttonsDaze. Today we're going to chat a little bit about beans, specifically for your long-term food storage and your daily use. There's all kinds of really cool stuff in here. We're going to give you little snippets and we're going to encourage you to add some beans to your long-term food storage. But in order to make sure that they are good when you go to use them, there's some steps you have to take. Are you ready? Let's do beans. So the really cool part about beans is that they are a wonderful source of protein, a wonderful source of fiber, and check it out, a wonderful source of fat. Did you know that beans have a natural oil in them that's a wonderful natural source of fat for us? I know, right? They're almost like the perfect food. Almost. Okay, but they're only good if they're stored properly. So let's talk about the different ways that you can store them properly. And there are some differences among some beans, right? You have beans like you have navy beans, pinto beans, red beans. You have lentils that are like peas, split peas, that kind of thing. They all kind of fall similar, and the storage for them is the same, but they serve different purposes. So you want to pay attention to what you eat, what you'll use them for. You're going to find out a few different things that you can use them for. They're wonderful to have stocked up for emergencies because they're not only healthy and wonderful, they are crazy inexpensive, right? Okay, so let's get started with storage. Let's say you're going through your cabinets and you find a couple bags of beans and they've been in there probably a couple years, right? Are they still good? You're going to have to check it out. To rehydrate beans, it typically takes 3 cups of water to 1 cup of beans. And I mean, that's how much water they absorb, right? Because not only do you have to let them soak for, say, 12 hours, but then you also have to cook them for like 3 to 4. Now, if you're pressure canning, that's different, because that's a form of cooking. We're not going to touch on that. But to cook beans, to get them to where they're edible, it takes, 3 to 4 hours, depending. So you want to factor all that in when you're storing your beans. You're going to need water. Water is important. But for storing your beans, it falls into the same category as pretty much everything else. You need a cool, dark, dry place. Beans cannot just be put in a bucket. You can't go to the store, buy a few bags, put the bags in a bucket, close up the bucket, call it a day. It doesn't work that way. That's good for short term, but for long-term storage, you really want to get them out of those store wrappers. You don't want to keep them in those wrappers over a year. You really don't. So the easiest thing to do is to bring the beans home, go ahead and repackage them right away. The best way that I have found to store beans for pretty much an indefinite time frame. Now, it depends on who you talk to, right? Some people will say 10 years. Some people will say indefinite. So for at least 10 years, but if you're rotating through your beans, it's kind of a non-issue, right? So for at least 10 years, which is long-term food storage, the best way that I have found to store beans of any kind is to come home, take them out of that wrapper that they were in at the store, put them into Mylar bags, put in oxygen absorbers, seal it up, take those Mylar bags full of beans, put them into a bucket, put on an airtight bucket. Now, if you want to go an extra step, you could actually even add extra oxygen absorbers into the bucket before you seal it up. I mean, that makes it for sure. Do you have to freeze your beans before you put them in Mylar bags? Actually, you should not. It is not a good idea to freeze your beans before you put them into Mylar bags, because by putting them in the freezer, you're creating extra moisture. So when you take them out and you put them in the Mylar bags, those beans have more moisture than they would if they were just dry. It's not necessary. If you're creating that oxygen-free environment with the O2 absorbers in the Mylar bag, then nothing will live anyway. So it's an absolute wasted step, and it actually risks your bean storage. So don't put them in the freezer. If you're looking at short term and you're going to use them from there, then go ahead and put them in the freezer. But if you're looking for long-term storage, keep them away from the freezer if you're going to store them in Mylar bags. That's a handy tip that I don't think a lot of people realize. When you put things in the freezer, it creates extra moisture. Extra moisture with beans is a really bad thing. It can cause mold. It can actually help the bugs. It's not a good thing, okay? So keep them out of the freezer. So how do I store my beans, Lise? Okay, I don't do 5-gallon Mylar bags in a 5-gallon bucket because that's not how we eat them. I do smaller bags. I do quart bags or I do gallon bags, and then I use those. Now, if you are going to use a 5-gallon Mylar bag, you want at least 2,000 cc's of oxygen absorbers in there. So 4 500 ones, 2 1,000 ones, do the math, okay? Put those in, seal the bag, let it sit. You want to let it sit overnight so that it works to get all of that oxygen out. When you go to look at it the next morning, you'll see all the oxygen gone. Life will be great. It's working really good. Put that airtight lid on top of that bucket. Put it in a cool, dark, dry place. You still want to keep it away from water. You still want to keep it away from extreme heat. Best temperature, okay, for beans is again between 50 and 75. So like most anything else, that is the optimum temperature. Stuff happens, guys, okay? It's not always going to be, you know, a perfect world where you have the availability to keep it in that kind of climate control. So you do what you can with what you got, it'll work, okay? Just make sure that you're depriving it of oxygen and depriving it of light. That's the key factor right there. You want to keep that away from there. If by chance your beans get old and you want, you know, you try to rehydrate them and you realize they're not going to, okay? So you take the rest of them because they're old. Don't throw them away. Don't throw them away. No, you don't. You can actually grind up those beans and use it as a flour. What? Yeah. Yep. You can. So it's a great superfood, really, and it has this really great long-term shelf life. Most preparedness type people always say rice and beans, right? So definitely don't get rid of them, but you do want to make sure that you're rotating through them so that you are getting the best use from them. But beans, even if you grind them down into flour, they're still perfectly good for you. You can use them in soups and stews. You can make breads, all kinds of great things. Beans are a great thickener, especially when you're looking more at the lentils than, say, you know, beans. They are great thickeners for soups and stews. They add that extra flavor. They add that thickness to it, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So what's next? So I'm going to run through a few options here, right? If you just have airtight containers, like your vacuum sealing jars, or you put them in a bucket that's airtight or something like that, right? You're looking at about a shelf life of about 3 years. So that's still really good. Rotate through your beans. Beans are really good. Never store them in the packages that they are in the store. You want to get that plastic off there. It's too easy for insects and moisture and that kind of thing to get in there. You don't want to transfer that into your pantry. Get them out of that bag, okay? Repackage them. If you're doing an airtight container, you're good for about 3 years. That's a good thing. Your second option is to freeze them. Now, this is an option again. It actually is an indefinite life if you put them in the freezer. But a lot of us are not preparing to be able to have a freezer indefinitely. Am I wrong? Okay. So it, to me, is more of a short-term option to keep them in the freezer. Like, you're going to put them in the freezer and that's where you'll use them from. But for long-term storage, honestly, I think the best way to do it is vacuum sealing it or putting it in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. If you're just straight up vacuum sealing it, you're looking at 5+ years, okay? That's fantastic. If you're adding oxygen absorbers to the thing, you're looking at 10+ years. So those are really your best options for how long to store beans and where you can store them from. Not all of us have the same options as far as, you know, where we can store it, how we can store it. So those are the different ways, and that's the time frame that you're looking at. Now, if you're just getting started, being able to stock up on enough beans for 3 years, that's epic. That's epic, and it doesn't take up very much space depending on how many beans you eat on a regular basis. So let's talk about all the different things that beans and lentils can be used for. Okay, I got to read my list here. Soybeans, limas, pink beans, mung beans, lentils, and split peas are some fantastic things for long-term food storage. I mean, like epic, really, really good. When you grind them, okay, they lend themselves to great dried gravies or mixes for sauces. They're thickeners for when you create your soups or your stews. They are fantastic. And they're good as an ingredient, the main ingredient, right? I mean, who doesn't love split pea soup? I mean, come on. Okay, you might not, but you know, split pea soup, hello. So that is something that you want to look at, is the different options. Don't just go for pinto beans, don't just go for black beans. Look at your lentils too. Look at your mung beans, look at your peas, look at your garbanzo beans. Oh my God, those are fantastic for long-term storage, because all of those not only have their original, intent, however you normally use them for, you can grind them up and do so many more things with them. It's so good. So here's a little list that I thought you might enjoy. Okay, so hey, Lise, I have stocked up. I have buckets of beans for my long-term food storage. It didn't cost me hardly anything. I now have protein and carbs and fats and fiber that's going to last me in case of anything. I'll be able to make all kinds of things with these. So what do I need to know about making things with these, right? So first is soaking the beans. It reduces the cooking time by about 1/2 if you soak it for 12 hours. So if you soak it overnight, literally cuts it down. The exception to that are the lentils, because the lentils, like split peas and black-eyed peas, they can be cooked from their dry state, right? But for your black beans, for your pinto beans, for your red beans, soak them. Definitely soak them. Very important. Cuts down your cooking time like that. Obviously, I think it's obvious. I hope it's obvious. The larger the bean, the longer it needs to soak. Okay, so your little black beans are going to rehydrate much faster than your big red beans. So pay attention to the size of your beans. That's how much longer it's going to take to soak and how much more water it's going to take, because the larger the bean, the bigger it gets when it rehydrates. I heard a lot of people mention adding baking soda to their beans for a few different reasons. I think somebody said that it prevents some of the side effects that some of us have from beans. But here's the thing. You don't want to add baking soda to make it cook faster, or while it's soaking, you don't want to add it, because it'll actually decrease the nutrients in the bean. Shut the front door. Seriously, it'll decrease the nutrients in the bean. Beans are the perfect food. Don't help them decrease their nutrition, okay? Just let them do what they do in the time that they need to do it. You're all good. You don't want to add salt or any product high in calcium, magnesium, or acid to the soaking or cooking water, or the beans will not soften. So if you add salt into your soaking water, right, they're not going to get softer. They're not going to absorb it. It's some kind of amazing thing that they do. Add that kind of stuff after they're cooked. Makes a huge difference. If by chance you're interested in cooking your beans in the microwave, it's fine for reheating ones that are already cooked, but it really is not good for putting them in before they're cooked. So don't cook your beans in the microwave. It's a hot mess. I think this is a great time to definitely take a look at all the different kinds of beans and legumes that are out there, because they are so healthy, so affordable. And with meat prices going the way they are, while I have stated in the past that I am a carnivore and I plan on staying that way, it's a nice way to subsidize your meals, your menu plan. And they're crazy good for you, right? A lot of your low carb diets are not big into them because they have carbs in them that typically make it more difficult to hit that 20 to 30 carbs a day. But if you're just doing, even if you're doing 100 carbs a day, you've got room to add beans into your menu. So don't just buy them. You want to buy them and you want to use them. It's definitely something that you need to rotate through. You need to get used to how they cook, how they taste, the different things they can be used for. And at some point later this summer, I'm going to be making some fun stuff, and I'm going to be grinding up some beans in my wheat grinder. I'm really looking forward to this because I'm a little crazy, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that you guys are going to really enjoy it. So this is our very quick talk on storing beans for long-term food storage. Crazy important, definitely important. Okay. Get your beans, get your legumes, go to wherever you go to get buckets, get your lids, get your Mylar bags and O2 absorbers, links down below, okay? And do your thing. I mean, store them up. It's not like they're going to go bad if you store them properly. It's not like you won't eat them if you learn to make them part of your regular diet. Beans are phenomenal. They're crazy good for you. I hope that you have enjoyed this chat. What do you have to recommend for beans? What's your favorite way to cook beans? Ooh, tell me in the comment section below. Let's all share our bean recipes, okay? I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Remember, if you like what we do here, please hit that like, subscribe, and share. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Until the next time, be safe.